Okay, welcome back. This is video 5 in the Accessible Self-Care During COVID-19 series. I'm still Alison Oldker, still a naturopath physician. I use the pronouns she, her, and I teach yoga here for Team Yoga Wild. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the Yoga Wild channel. That helps us continue to get the word out. In the previous videos, we talked about best ways to support the immune system. We can't have a conversation about the immune system without talking about the microbiome. So for those of you who haven't heard this term, the microbiome is the idea that the human body actually lives in a symbiotic relationship with microflora. There are actually more microflora, microbacteria on us and in us than there are human cells. And the last number that I've used, the number I tend to use when I think about this, is 100 trillion. That's a trillion with a T. The amount of information that we don't know about the microbiome is still way more than we do know about it, and we are learning things day by day about how vital this system is. The microbiome is not technically part of the immune system. It operates at a distance from the immune system. It's a little bit complicated to think about, but if we think about the digestive tract, where half of the microflora, about 50 trillion, exist, they're technically outside of the body because the digestive tract is actually open through the mouth. It's considered to be outside of the body. And a lot of the immune tissue in our digestive tract is actually inside the body. So again, the microbiome and the immune system aren't directly on top of each other, but it turns out that they communicate with each other constantly. And what we know about the microbiome is if it loses diversity over time, it's associated with mostly negative health impacts. So creating a healthy and diverse microbiome in the body is a crucial part of health. There's a lot of talk out there about probiotics and taking them. And I don't think this is a bad thing to do, per se. But what I want people to understand is that a lot of the microflora that comes in capsules in a probiotic form just passes right through you. And a lot of them aren't even nearly enough of a dose for what we would want. An average probiotic has 5 billion species in it, or a total count of 5 billion. Maybe some of the stronger versions have 100 billion, and anywhere from 1 species to 25 species. For me, that's a little bit like a drop in the bucket, and we have to think about other strategies to support microflora. What gets missed in the conversation for me around diet frequently, and is the number one thing that microflora needs to thrive and survive, is the idea of fiber. Okay? A lot of people talk about eating paleo or keto or vegan or plant-based or whatever that is, but if we don't incorporate the idea of fiber intake into these conversations, then the microbiome isn't getting what it needs to continue to take care of those microflora that have been laid down for quite some time. So for the purposes of this, I don't need to go into the differences between fiber, insoluble and soluble fiber. Let's just talk about trying to aim for appropriate levels every day. Now, the current US recommendations are 25 grams of fiber for females, 30 grams of fiber for males. I personally think that those numbers are really low. There's research indicating that some hunter-gatherer societies that exist eat upwards of 100 grams of fiber per day. I like to shoot for 40 grams of fiber per day. It's a lot harder than you would think if you're used to a standard American diet. There are studies that indicate that over 95% of adult Americans don't get enough fiber every day. This is foundational to help the immune system and the microbiome be able to have that conversation, and it needs to happen to protect us. So different sources of fiber. Beans, legumes, garbanzo beans are really high in fiber. Seeds, chia seeds, 2 tablespoons of chia seeds is about 10 grams of fiber. And then, of course, whole foods, fruits, and vegetables. So I always think about the idea of food as fundamentally being a conversation of privilege, right? Not everybody has a say in what they can eat and what food they have access to. And I know that for many people who are struggling financially during this time, that food is a scary topic. And if we can keep it simple, right, to eat as much fiber as possible, then sometimes that can ease some of the concerns about whether or not we're eating the right way. Okay? So remember, eat your fiber. I do keep a fiber supplement around my house. It's a hemp seed one, whatever works for you. Maybe not a bad idea during this time, just to make sure that you're trying to meet your goals. If you don't hit 40, but you hit a number like 20, that's probably more than you might have been doing before. Okay? Focus on fiber. Next up, we're going to talk about cortisol and stress management, and one of the easiest ways that you can help support a normal cortisol flow throughout the day. Again, I'm Alison Oltker. Thanks for joining me for this series, and if you haven't already, please forward this to a friend or loved one and subscribe to the Yoga Wild channel.